when we do detoxification with heavy metals, we have to be careful not to just redistribute the heavy metals. We have to make sure that we're eliminating them. Otherwise, I've seen lots and lots of unhappy individuals for that.
Yeah, I've actually witnessed, there's a guy here in South Carolina. I don't know if he's still in practice because he was older than dirt like a decade ago when I saw him. Sorry, whoever you are. I know his name because that would be disrespectful. Let's just put it this way. He does chelation exclusively, non-insurance, so he doesn't have to play that game. And he has people come in from around the world and they do the 1 hour IV, and then he's simultaneously, while he's chelating, putting vitamins back in their body, because the chelation doesn't just remove the toxins, it also strips you of some of these key nutrients. So he's putting those back in. Would there be benefit if they stayed on it for 12 hours?
So I work a lot with naturopaths, and I do like IV chelation when we put it in conjunction with some oral chelation therapy. So that way, after the IV's done, you can still at home take some chelators so that you're still binding up. And that's where a binder still needs to be used. Binding up everything that's been like pushed up into the air. That way it's not just going to move from one spot to another. So it's not to say that IV chelation should never be used. I just think it needs to be used in conjunction with other modalities.
Agreed. And I think I have actually seen like cadmium and mercury and various heavy metal go down in not just one way of measuring. You can look in the blood, you can look in the urine, you can look in the stool. You see it go down in all of those places. So, I mean, there is definite benefit. If you've never heard of that, you guys, actually, Dr. Atkins wrote about this way back in the early 1970s. I was still in diapers, Caitlin. And he wrote a book called Dr. Atkins' Health Revolution. If you've never heard of that book, you could probably get it for like $1 on Amazon. And he talks about chelation, a lot of these therapies that now you probably use in your practice, Caitlin. He was kind of the trailblazer. Everybody thinks of him as the diet guy, but he knew a lot about the natural health and functional medicine kind of principles that are now common practice.
Well, it's funny that, you know, there's certain things that we've known and done as a species for millennia. Like fasting is one of them. It is one of the strongest healing modalities when done properly. Same thing with like low carb. When it's done properly, it is so super healing. Keto, paleo can be extremely healing. There's so many different things that can be done to be very beneficial, but we have to do it properly. And it's funny to me that this has been going on, like this is how our ancestors lived, and yet there's so much backlash and so much pushback for decades until it becomes common knowledge. So, you know, some of the things that you and I talk about now that there's still a lot of pushback on, they're like, no, that's not right. That doesn't work. That's ridiculous. You know, women should never fast, and I'm sure we'll get into that. I don't believe that, by the way. So for those of you that are listening, but, you know, within 20 years, there will be more knowledge around it. And the reason that is it takes 20 years for today's science, today's research to actually be implemented in the medical system. 20 years, like that baffles my mind. And so by then, like 20 years from now, that's going to be like older. There's going to be newer, better methods to get quicker results because of the different biohacking and the research and everything else that we have going on. So it's unfortunate that there's so much pushback for natural things when in reality, does it take a little more effort? Probably. Does it take some time? Absolutely. But long term, are you going to get better results? 100%.
You went there, so let's go right there now with the women and fasting. And I'll tell you, it was right about a decade ago. I was in the paleo community, and there was one girl who tried a fasting type of approach. I think she was only doing just intermittent fasting, and she had a quote bad experience. And so she writes this very prominent post that went viral on the internet that says women should not fast. And so it became this mantra: women, it's probably a bad idea to fast. And she started talking about menstruation issues and started talking about hormonal imbalances and all these things. Now, she's a very science-minded blogger, so I don't want to dismiss her concerns, but it was highly anecdotal, and people thought they treated it as if it was a study, declaring this as a true statement. But I know many women that do very well in fasting. You're one of them that does extremely well, and you implement it, periodically with both intermittent and some what do you call them, block fasts instead of extended fast. You call them block fasts. So make the argument for why women should fast, and then how is it different than what guys can do?
Sure. So I think what we need to stop doing as practitioners and as society is putting women and men in the same box for everything, because we're not the same. We are
Yeah.
not men with smaller figures like that. We're not the same. We have cycling hormones every day, every month, and the argument behind it is our ancestors fasted. They didn't have fridges, they'd go days without eating and their body knew how to. But the trick is to not overdo it. So we can't fast the way that men can. We have to be mindful of our hormones, because if we're not eating at certain times of our cycle, and I'm specifically talking right now about menstruating women and perimenopausal women, if we're not eating at certain times, what's going to happen is our body is going to go, oh, we're in a famine state. We don't produce progesterone, so we can't get pregnant, and because it wouldn't be a good time to bring a child into this world. And if we don't have progesterone, then we have other problems like depression, we get moody, we don't want to get out of bed, we have fatigue, we have brain fog, like all of these other things start to happen. And so I think what happened with that specific blogger, and what a lot of women do, myself included, because when I started fasting, I did it so wrong. Like, oh my goodness, did I do it wrong? I'm the type of person where I'm very type A, very driven, and seeing my male counterparts fasting, I'm like, oh, I can do that. I can do it. I can do it better. I can do it longer. Yeah, I could. However, I changed my hormones. So my hormones went in the toilet. Like, my cycles were awful. I had massive brain fog. I had low energy. I was very short with Niles, my husband. Like, I could pull it together for my clients because you can't be short with them. But I was not fun to be around. And the reason that was I was fasting. I was doing longer fasts too often, which we can talk more about that. But I was specifically doing longer fasts. So when we talk about intermittent fasting, I personally believe everybody should be going 13 hours every day with no food. And so 13, it's easy, because 13 hours actually in cancer studies have shown that not eating 13 hours reduces the likelihood of the reoccurrence of cancer. So it's like, hold on.
And look at what that is. You stop eating a few hours before bedtime, you go to bed, you wake up, you don't eat right away. That's 13 hours. Like, it's not hard.
No. And that's what I tell people all the time. Like, okay, depending on what time you wake up, like if you're a really early riser, like somebody over here, which I can argue the fact that I think you're more of a night owl than I am, waking up at 2:30, but that's besides the point. But no, if you wake up at like 7 o'clock every morning, then just stop eating 7 o'clock the night before and don't have anything till 8. Like, that's super easy. Like, do everything else.
Including bulletproof coffee, guys. That will break the fast. Let's stop pretending like bulletproof coffee, oh, it's okay because you're still fasting. No, you're not. You're keeping insulin down, sure, but fatty coffee is not fasting, right?
So, no, and so I'm a purist when it comes to fasting. When I'm fasting, I'm fasting. I'm only taking in water and salt. And it really depends. So for me, when I'm working with somebody, what is their goal? Where are they starting at? Are they starting with the standard American diet? Are they used to eating every 2 hours to try and keep blood sugar level? Like, guys, I taught this 10 years ago, and I cringe now thinking like, oh my gosh, what in the world was I teaching my, insulin resistant clients? Like, I was teaching them to eat every 2 hours to keep blood sugar stable, and I was actually doing more harm than good.
That's right.
So anywho, I always reserve the right to change my opinion based on science and research, because I am human, and as we learn and as we continue to learn and grow, we can continue to expand our mind and expand our practice and knowledge and everything. So, but I'm with you. I'm the type of person where it really depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for a true fast, water and salt. If you're looking to just not eat, like taking a break from eating, then okay, maybe have a bulletproof coffee or a bulletproof tea, and that will prevent you from eating because it'll fill you up because there's a lot of caloric density, which is great. It's good, healthy fats. But is it doing the same thing? Some will argue yes. Some will argue no. But you have to figure out.
It depends on what you're quantifying. Is it keeping insulin low? Sure. Are you maybe turning off some of the growth hormone? Are you turning off some of the autophagy when you had that? Probably.
Yeah, like I said, it really depends what you're looking for and the results you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I really actually encourage people to listen to your body. If your body's like screaming at you, like you're hungry, if it's true hunger, then eat. Like, don't push through it. If it's not true hunger, because unfortunately most of us have lost the ability to understand what true hunger is, because we don't have to go hungry, then I recommend doing drink some salt water and see if you're still hungry. Like really test see if you're hungry or if it's more of a habit thing. Because I'll tell you, like when I'm not trying to fast, I can go all day. I can even go like 36, 48 hours and be like, oh gosh, like I've just been so busy with writing clients or whatever it may be. But the moment that I set it in my mind that, I'm going to do a block fast, I'm going to do a 5-day, a 7-day water fast, day one is like the hardest thing in the entire world. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, I could be having a fatty coffee, or, it's dinner time and I really want a salad with some grass-fed beef. And, so it's all mental. Half the time it's mental, but it's a matter of figuring out the difference.
It's day 2 for me that gets me every time. I can survive day 1 because I do a lot of OMAD already, 1 meal a day. But day 2 is a bitch. So
day 2 and 3 suck.
Yeah.
2 and 3 suck, and they always suck, guys. They never get to the point where like you could be doing this for years, like I have. Day 2 and 3 always suck. Yes. You're exactly right, Jimmy. They always suck. It's never like you get to day 2 and you're like, woo, this is a breeze.
Although I will tell you something I have implemented as of late. Don't think I've really shared it anywhere publicly. I talk to people all the time kind of behind the scenes. But the 3 days leading up to going on a block fast of, say, 7 days, and I want to talk about your block fast that you do, the frequency and how long you go. But the 3 days leading up, I eat a crap load of fat and protein. I mean, really even pushing satiety right to its brink, just so I'm well nourished, well supplied with the fatty acids and the amino acids, so that when I start, day 1 is definitely going to be a cinch, but day 2, it still sucks, but it's not as much. And I have found that to be a really strong strategy to make sure that I'm well nourished going into a fast, because when you feast, you feast. When you fast. We kind of need to really honor that.
100%. I always have my clients go low carb, very low carb, a few days up to it, because if we're eating the standard American diet and we're using fasting almost as like a punishment, I hate that. I ate a whole bunch of carbs the day before. I had some wine and I ate the cake and I had the French fries, and okay, you feasted. You don't have to go the next day and fast and like abstain from eating, because actually it's going to be harder just because you ate all of those carbs. And then you're going to beat yourself down because emotionally and mentally it's going to be much harder. And then you're going to be like, if you're anything like me, gosh, just pull it together, figure this out. You can go through this. Like, don't be a failure. It's crazy, the stuff that we do. So I 100% agree. I always, when I'm personally doing it, I go low carb. It depends how far in advance. It depends how long I'm going to go on a water fast. But going low carb makes it so much easier. So much easier. Thanks for bringing that up.
Real Good Foods is one of the fastest growing frozen food companies in the U.S. Everything they make is nutrient dense, high in protein, low in carbs, and made from real food ingredients. They make food for every occasion: breakfast sandwiches, poppers, enchiladas, entrees, and pizza. So whether you're on a keto diet, trying to cut back on your carbs, or just trying to eat healthier, they make super convenient and tasty options. RealGoodFoods.com and @RealGoodFoods on social media.